Hello, welcome to another episode of G.I. Joe New News Review. I am David Allen, and I am joined by my special guest, Dan Klingensmith Jr., with another fantastic Kickstarter. Not only one volume, two volume, number 9 and 10 of Creating G.I. Joe, the series of wonderful books, and you can go on to click Kickstarter right this moment while we're chit-chatting about it and order your set and get a whole bunch of cool stuff if you go for all that extra stuff. Hi, Dan.
How's it going?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, it's been a long week and a half. So just I think you saw like the delay with Kickstarter a little bit in the beginning. So uh,
But
but it finally
that's
launched.
but that's the thing with Kickstarter. I'm surprised because normally when you post, it's up that day and that's it. But it took like almost 5 or 6 days when you posted, "Hey, I'm waiting for Kickstarter to approve," and it didn't
Yeah,
approve till like Monday or Tuesday or something. That was a little bit of a weird thing because I don't think I've ever seen Kickstarter wait that long before.
yeah. They said they're just backlogged. So I
Really?
kind of which I get it. I understand. Um, it is what it is. I have accepted that. I mean, it shouldn't really impact it too much as far as the Kickstarter, but I mean, I was strategically trying to launch a little bit earlier, so I gave myself a little bit more time. Really gave people more time to be able to pledge, but yeah, I think it's sitting at 75% right now. So, um, my goal hopefully is to it ends on October 10th. My goal is hopefully this week it'll fund by midweek, because once it's funded, then I go to my printer with everything. So they get all the files. They'll send me the mock up. I'll do my final edits, and then it should be good to go. So that way, when the Kickstarter ends, the day of, as long as everything's been prepped and I've reviewed it, and had time, then I just say, all right. So almost like hitting enter on your computer. It's like print, and or on your printer, right? The little printer button, and they'll just start printing. So that way, the week of the week of the Kickstarter ending, I think the 10th on a Tuesday. Um, Hopefully by the following Monday, I'll have them in hand, or Tuesday. So that's the goal.
But that's what happened the last one, volume 8. it,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
it funded like so quick. It's probably the fastest one, if I'm not mistaken, that funded, and you were printing it before the thing funded. It was so quickly.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I said, the sooner it funds, the sooner I can get to the prep work and making sure everything's in line with the printer, of course. So
So
um,
are you going to do the same thing where you feel you're comfortable, you've got it, before it funds again, or are you just going to wait till it funds?
as far as getting prep work done, I'll wait till it funds. Going to print, I usually go right after Kickstarter, like right after it ends. I literally emailed them that afternoon or that next day and said, "All right, we're good to go."
Okay.
So because at that point, it's just a matter of Kickstarter collecting the funds
Yeah.
and then sending them over, which that can take a minute. But well, I think I can't remember how long it takes. It's a week or 2 weeks, but I've done it enough times. I trust Kickstarter to come through on their end.
Yeah.
As long as I don't lose too many backers, which hopefully is never the
Well,
never the objective, hopefully. But as long as
that's
that happens, I feel comfortable enough to go ahead and just put on a credit card if I have to for the moment, and then I just pay right down once I get the payment from Kickstarter. So I don't
but
build
that's
it
been a
accrue.
thing. But that's been a thing recently, obviously, with some HasLab situations. If I don't know how much you follow, where these people aren't able to fulfill their obligation or whatever, and it does go down and stuff like that. So you have to like be prepared, like over the
Yeah,
number that
yeah,
you actually need to print and be ahead of things,
yeah,
if you use that thought
yeah,
process.
yeah. There's a ratio. I want to make sure I'm at a certain point. It's before. hopefully, the goal's higher this time because it's 2 books.
It's two
And
books, right?
so it's a little bit different. So that's the key. I've never done 2 books, so it'll be interesting to see. I mean, for some reason, if it weren't the fun, then I know not to do that again. But I'm pretty confident it will. Like I said, the sooner it does, the better. That way I can get. The sooner it does, the sooner you'll get the book, I guess is the best way to put it. Because then I feel comfortable enough to go to the printer and say, okay, I'm at goal. Let me get on my prep work, because that's when things start accruing. So any changes I need to make or anything like that, they'll charge me, of course.
Right.
So, I want to make sure everything's in line before, but I very rarely, it's always something very tiny that either I notice after the fact or they do. But most of the time, very minimal changes, I guess, or edits, I guess, at that point. So,
And it goes to print, you got that last volume eight out like within like 2 weeks. I think I had it. It was quick. When
yeah,
you had it in hand, it shipped. I think I was one of the very first people that were able to show it off and tell people, hey, here it is. Here's some cool pictures. Here's my favorite twins. Blah blah blah. It came quick. So
yeah,
with 2 volumes, I'm not sure what the time frame would be on that.
it'll be the same. I
Same
mean,
thing.
they'll print both at the same time. So, you know, as long as I get them, it just depends on the day. Those I think I got on a Thursday or Friday. So literally Friday night and Saturday, I think I had them out by Saturday. So I think Thursday night, I started getting all the boxes and everything prepped. And then Saturday or Friday. And then by Saturday, I think I was shipping out already. And then I think there's maybe a couple, I think I need to order more boxes or something. Maybe lagged it till Monday. Like, because I get my boxes pretty quickly. If I run out, I get them within a day or two. So within a week, everything was pretty much shipped for Kickstarters. And then I had a couple people who had ordered like after the fact. Right. So then I fulfilled theirs last. And then I'll send a lot of the former Hasbro employees, who've been a big contribution, have helped out. I'll send their copies as well. So within a couple of weeks, everybody should have their copies. And that's the thing I'm proud about with my Kickstarters is there's not a long turnaround time
No,
like
that's true.
most.
Yeah.
So
Some of these
yeah,
things are like the tomes of Moses that some of these Kickstarter things are, and I'm not saying there's anything negative about, but
no,
obviously there's a lot going into that sort of a thing, and some are from other countries, some are it's a little bit more complicated. You're right here in the United States, and you've been doing this. This is your 10th volume you're working on, ninth and 10th. So you've got this down to a science. People can
yes,
pretty much rely on a date. You can put a needle on a calendar and pretty much get it.
yeah. I put November just because. I mean, the last one, we almost ran into an issue of the cover, the paper stock, wasn't in, so they had to do some uh finagling around with certain things to make sure that we can use. But I did let them know when the next ones were coming. So I gave them plenty of advance notice, like, hey, Octoberish is when I'm looking. So make sure you have your paper stock in for the covers. So it's
And you got
consistent,
two. And you got
Yeah.
two. So
Yeah. And I
there's
told, so they
more.
know. Yeah. So I've already talked to them. They're aware. I told them probably the week of the 10th, I'll be placing the order and then should be good to go, like I said. So, I mean, as soon as I can get them in hand, I have a local show here on the 22nd. So, hopefully, like I said, the turnaround's quick and then I can work on them at night after my regular job and then get them all shipped out that later that week. So,
So other than the fact that you were doing two at once, you said probably 6 or 7 months ago when we spoke about the eighth volume that you were going to
mhm.
work on 9 and 10. I didn't expect you were going to put them both out at the same time. So the difficulties and the complications have to be a little bit different than trying to do one volume in 1 year or whatever, trying to do 3 volumes in 1 year, 2 volumes at the exact same time. Talk a little bit about those challenges.
I used to do 2 a year, right? He's put out one in the fall and one in the summer or springish. And then there were some delays, unfortunately, over a couple years there during COVID and then a little bit prior. But yeah, so yeah, I never done two at a time. It was definitely a process, but I back in June I just made the decision, like, you know what, I want to have three out this year because I am limited as far as how much time I have with the license and everything. So I'm thinking I have at least two more books, maybe three. I'd like to end on an even number of 12. That's my ideal goal, but we'll see how much I have after. If there's anything after, I joke, maybe I'll make it like kind of like 3.75. It'll just be 12.75. So maybe it
Make it
won't
an
be a full
incentive.
book.
Make it an incentive for getting the last one. People, this is like a stretch goal. You can get this
Yeah, that could be a
other
stretch goal.
material or something. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. It could be kind of like, issue number 155 and a half. So it'll be just be
Right.
12 and a half. So yeah, so a stretch goal or potentially its own thing. I don't know. I haven't really gotten there yet. Um, I was already nervous to get the 12 personally, a couple months ago. And then, as I posted on social media, one of the designers had come across a lot of his stuff that he had thought was lost for many, 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 many years. And he, saved them on those little funky circular things, called disc back in the day. And so he came across those because his hard drive had crashed with it all. So he didn't think he had it. And so he started sending me those files. And so that was a lot of fun. So a lot of interviewing on new characters that hadn't written about, because a lot of these characters and some of the stuff I've written about back in 2014-15. I mean, it's been a long time since some of them have been written, and the preliminary pages, which I'll probably always do some minor updates. Like the Rattler's been done probably since 2015. It's just a matter of sequence when I release. So that will be coming in the last two: the Defiant, Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow version 2. Someone asked about recently. So anything that's that I missed, if I have stuff on, it'll be coming up very soon. But yeah, the process is a little bit of a challenge, just the amount of time and the amount of interviewing I did, because the tooling process I had pretty much nailed down. That's what's covered in number 9. I had some people doing editing, so they needed to edit and clarify some things. So I was very grateful for their input and the insight, because that's something, I knew some of the process, but they gave me a lot of the details, even down to, I think, the type of steel they were using.
Wow.
So for the molds. And then number 10, I get into the packaging. So number 10 really covers behind the scenes of what was going on when manufacturing was happening. And so the packaging, I essentially overwrote because I was writing and I just kept going. And I was like, oh, there's a lot of information here. Am I going to be able to fit this into number 10? Well, sure enough, I did not. So I have part 1 of the behind the scenes. And then I think number 11. So number 11 is pretty much done as far as the written part, which is great, because sometimes that's the most tedious part. The design part, it can be, but it's fun to me because, it's art and graphics and, stuff like that. So, so at least that part, as far as number 11, should be somewhat done. But number 10 covers a lot of information from Ed Morrill, who was, worked with Hector Garrido as far as a lot of the package design. So some of his insight and then Larry Hamas, I interviewed him and he gave me some insight into the file cards. And then I think that's pretty much for number 10. Number 11 will cover the package engineer's role. And then I'll dive into a little bit more of the packaging itself from like the art department and what stages they had to go to get everything to print. So that'll be number 11 and possibly 12, but I think I could fit it all in number 11. We'll see when I put it together. But number 9 also covers quality assurance as well. So some interesting tidbits there as far as all the testing that they had to do, and a lot of that testing still exists today on toys. So
Cool. That's the interesting thing is you talk about the production and the packaging and the file cards and stuff like that. And the thing that I like about these is there's so much stuff that I didn't know about. Obviously, we've heard this. You and I have heard this. A lot of the people that are probably going to watch this have heard this. That the folks that were producing GI Joe at the time, they were producing GI Joe at the time. They weren't concerned with the kids that were reading the file cards, weren't playing with the toys and creating their own worlds and things like that. They did all the work, but they didn't know what we were doing. They didn't know what our response was. Yeah, there was letters, you get letters from moms and blah blah blah, but they didn't know what us kids were doing. Now when we talk to folks like Ed Morrow, Kurt Busiek, Larry Hama, so on and so on and so on, they're stunned at some of the things that these kids tell them about their childhoods, of how it helped them with their bullying, or they helped them with their introvertedness, or they helped them with being an only child, or being with a mom that was the only parent, or this or that, or going into the service, or these different jobs that the characters had that propelled us into these different jobs and stuff like that. And these backgrounds of these characters are what really are interesting to me, is how they came about, the backgrounds of these characters. And Larry Hama, you said, goes into some of this stuff in the file cards, and I'm curious to find out what he says about creating these bios of these characters, their backgrounds, their lineages, their histories, their ethnicities. That stuff's fascinating to me, because GI Joe at the time was way ahead of its time, way
Yeah.
ahead of its time, with ethnicities, the
Diversity and
what was that?
the diversity of the
Diversity,
line. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Females, men, African, Native American, Latino, disabled people. I recently was talking to somebody about the fact that a lot of the Cobra characters, even though they're villains, they have disabilities technically. Some
Mhm.
of them, like the Crimson Twins, that's a disability on how their characterization is. Zartan has a disability. Major Blood has a disability. You know, a lot of these characters have disabilities. Snake Eyes is disabled. You know, but people didn't take these characters as that. They didn't take them because they were capable people. They were
Yeah.
in society and they were capable of doing stuff. They didn't let their disability stop them. And so GI Joe did all this stuff, but nobody realized what they were doing. They were so far ahead of what they are. Now we're in this society where, I don't want to get on a soapbox, the wokeness of a lot of the stuff that's going on today. GI Joe 40 years ago, a real American hero, started in 1982, and it is now 2022.
Yes. 40 years. Um, yeah, I mean, we didn't go into that much detail, Larry and I, as far as like the details as far as diversity and stuff. I mean, mainly I focus on just, his inspiration, and he shared some insightful stories and stuff, some that we may have heard before. But I show a little bit more on it, I share some of his original dossiers, besides the 82 ones, because I know I usually share the 82 ones, but I share some of the other ones as well. So I shared some of the dossiers that he had written where Kirk Buzigian would typically edit them, especially early on, and make notes. So I show some of that stuff mocked up, so you can kind of see what it originally looked like, what he had originally written, and he had to, fit it in that small space on a file card. So Kirk had to cut out some stuff, but we talk about that and some other aspects of the original file cards, what they originally looked like. As far as his dossier, it's not, I guess we shouldn't say the original file cards, but what's the original dossiers and what was taken from the originals, input onto the file card. But yeah, I mean, he's a pleasure to speak to. I'd never really interviewed him prior, so he was very forthcoming with information and awesome. And like I said, doing a lot of interviews as of late, it kind of gets you on the kick. I've had my podcast, video cast, whatever you want to call it. It's been a little slow. Just been busy with my personal life, and then this, and then Kirk Bazigian, who's my co-host, has been busy too as well. So I'm hoping in the near future, because I am in that mode now that you start interviewing people again and learning different things. You're like, man, I need to get back to this because everybody has a story, and there's some great stories out there. And I even on the in a group amongst just Hasbro people, I shared out a memo yesterday talking about the USS Flag and it's kind of marketing sheet. And I shared it out and I said, hey, anybody remember this beast? And someone who's responsible for the sales, jumped in and talked about having to sell it to like Toys R Us and stuff like that. So my hope is I'll get the Toy Fair and the sales in number 11 and 12 as well, or number 12 and 13, depending on where I'm at. So, but yeah, I mean, Joe's a very diverse group. I mean, you got an array of characters, array of personalities, array of looks. After that first year, I mean, and the success of the first year, I mean, think about how unique every single character is. There's some similarities, but I mean, really, it's a very diverse line, not only ethnicity, but just styles, as far as the characters and the colors and all that fun stuff. And but yeah, to your point earlier, I don't think back then, I mean, I'm sure they knew based on surveys and stuff that they had done what kids thought, and I'm sure sales numbers showed the popularity of it, of course. But as far as the influence, the long-term influence, I don't think they probably were thinking about that, even as passionate as many of them were and still are, I should say, not even were, but for many it wasn't just a job. For some it was, and that's okay, because I mean that's just how life is. But for many it was more than a job, and many have attributed Hasbro as, they call it Hasbro University. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but a lot of people who worked at Hasbro, they call it Hasbro University because they feel like I got my beginnings there. Some have stayed with Hasbro for 30 some years, or had stayed at Hasbro for 30 some years, and then others and retired, and others had left along the time, on their journey, but have still used to this day. I mean, I was talking to someone recently who shared that what they learned at Hasbro 30, 40 years ago, they still use today as far as like processes and how they go about stuff. So, and one's in product design overall. And he said, he had like a spreadsheet. He's a little bit more modern than the original ones back in 82, but the whole process of how they would go, this date they would do this date they would do. He's like, I still follow a similar process today in product design. It's just, it's just a different product, period.
So, do you have anything you want to share with us? Any exclusives? Because I love seeing the pages before I have it in hand. You showed me my favorite Crimson Guards and my Crimson Twins the last time. So I don't know if you have anything to share with me or not.
I have some my editing pages. I didn't know you were asking me that, so I didn't have them prepped. But
I didn't know I was going to ask you that, Dan. Who do you think you're talking to?
That's true. Let's see what I got here. Well, you'll have to know. I mean, again, these are editing ones, so they're not going to be very pretty. I did do a video recently, so for those of the people who are watching this and aren't familiar with the series, I did do a quick video over the weekend where I showed all 10 volumes, just a little bit of everything. So for new people, because I think that's what's going to really need to happen for this Kickstarter to be successful. Is I need, some people who are kind of on the fence, to jump over the fence and jump in. So the more people can share out, the more people can let others know about the book series, I think the better.
Every time I see somebody ask a question about something about the history or whatever, I always tell them, I'm like, contact Dan Klingensmith. He's got the whole darn Bible of G.I. Joe. All you have to do is ask him. He'll be glad to ship you all 10 volumes. Or whatever volumes was at the time.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I guess ask some questions I don't have the answers to. And I will go to the experts on those, like certain variations on characters, like Pat Stewart. I always like, all right, Pat's your guy, or International, I'll Dan Music or Drew Haggerty, those guys, they're the experts in that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I try to help out and answer any questions. But yeah, I mean, the books cover so much, and I try to really just as passionate as those guys were putting into the line, I try to do in the books, where I share out as much as I can about the characters, but also the behind the scenes, and really combing through memos, combing through dossiers, seeing the differences, pointing out different things. So,
Well,
um,
there's a weird thing that I just know, and me being a big comic book GI Joe fan for my whole life, that's where I got started with GI Joe, was with comic. I found an issue of Marvel Age that showed like bios for characters like sci-fi. Um,
hold on one second.
I think she'll have like one limit.
Okay, I don't know if you can cut that out or not, but
I can try.
okay, yeah,
I don't like to edit, but I have had to edit one video or two videos
okay.
before. But I can, if you want me to, I will.
If you can, but we'll see.
Like I
Sorry.
said, so there's a Marvel Age where it shows sci-fi, but he's got a weird name, and it shows a couple other guys in there does with these weird names. Did
Yes,
Larry
yes.
ever talk about where those names came from? Were they placeholder? I guess they
Um,
must have been placeholders.
I'm trying to think of some of the names, but yeah, on the original dossiers, I think there are some of those names, like the preliminaries. I don't have an original one laying next to me, but in the books, I'm trying to think. I'm not sure about the first year. I'll have to go double check. But sometimes, if I've shown another dossier, usually it has alternate names on top, and sometimes they're crossed out or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I think Dial Tone was a character. I think Sci-Fi, like there's some names that jumped around
Right.
to different characters. So I'd have to look. So mention it later to me, and I'll check and see. And you can always, you know, uh, throw it in the comments or something like that.
Okay.
As far as the sample page, probably not the most popular at this time in life, but here's a red star. So,
Guard.
Yeah, so October Guard. So it's again not the best quality because it's on my, when I do my edits, I just get it printed here locally, UPS store or whatever.
Gotcha.
So it's not going to be as vibrant as the final product it is, but
Cool,
it does good for what I need it for, right?
Yeah.
Let's see.
Fine. I love it.
Trying to see if there what else. I mean, of course, I'm a big believer, keeping stuff for surprising
Oh, of
and
course.
stuff like that, of course. But let me see what else I got in here. Because not only so in volume 9, I cover Serpentor, Pythona, and then there's another character by the name of High Priest,
Now,
which was
see,
kind of in tune with it.
but if you put Pythona, that's odd because there was never a figure of Pythona. So where's the
No,
thought on that?
so she's in the back in the unproduced section of every book.
So they
So
did
every
think
book.
about it then. They were thinking there
Oh
was
yeah.
some production of it.
So yeah, I mean, I don't have any sculpt sheets or anything. There's a lot of preliminary stuff, right?
I got
Here's another cool one. Skyhawk. There's a Wayne Luther.
Cool. Very good. That's different.
Yeah. So it's originally called Puddle Jumper, is the original name of it.
Oh.
But yeah. So for those of you watching and not familiar, I also showcase unreleased stuff at the very end of the book series or each book. So I try to incorporate in anywhere from. I think early on I didn't show that much, but I think I try to now show these 4 to 6 pages or so. So don't quote me on that, but I try to showcase that. So I'm showcasing the High Priest, a couple vehicles in volume 10 that Greg Bernston had designed, and then there's one other gentleman, I can't think of what his name. I kind of made up a name for him because he didn't really have a name because again he's conceptual, but pretty cool character there too. So he would have been an early rendering of it. So I'll show one more. So this is Serpentor's Chariot.
That looks like Destro's just spoiler.
So that's Serpentor, and Ron Rudat had originally designed it, and then Guy Cassaday took it over and built the model and made some modifications to it and stuff like that.
Oh.
So, so lots of fun stuff in both these volumes. Serpentor, which I think you got a sneak peek last time when we had talked. I think that will shock you on some of the really early Serpentor stuff. So I'll let that be a reveal once you get the book, because I think it's worth it.
I wonder if that ties back to Buzz Dixon's origin of Serpentor and Cobra La, because it was not what it ended up being. Serpentor was used for the I guess the third season 5-part miniseries, Arise, Serpentor Arise, and then Globulus was used for the 1987 feature animated film. And those two origins of those things were intermingled, and they totally ended up being two things where they used to be one thing, according to Buzz Dixon and some of his background. So I'm wondering if some of that has to do with Buzz Dixon's creations and things like that. That's going to be fascinating to see that stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that part, but I mean, it's an early Ron Rudat. He did a couple different renderings of what Serpentor was going to look like, because I talk a little bit about it, but you have your Emperor and then you have your Empress, and that's where Pythona comes in. So on Serpentor's page, there is an image of both of them together, essentially. So he drew them as a kind of a grouping, technically, and that's why I wanted to make sure I featured her in this book, because even though she came out totally different, in the cartoon and stuff, the original concept, she was really supposed to look more like in line with what Serpentor looked like, with some of the coloring and stuff like that. So,
and that's the neat thing too. Each volume kind of has its theme, like you did with the Crimson volume. You had a lot of Crimson people in there: the Crimson Guard, the Tomac Samat, the Crimson Cat. You had a couple other things. You didn't have everything. You had Crimson Guard version 2, but you had a couple of. Not everything was in there, but I like that kind of theme to it. And the Serpentor one has kind of a Serpentor theme going with it now. But the ninth is, which one's the ninth and which one's the 10th?
Serpentor's in the ninth.
Serpentor's the ninth, then the 10th one's the green one. So what's the theme of that one?
Not too much of a theme for that one. I mean, I know I've done like some Dreadnoks in the past. And all my table of contents in front of me for number 10, but you have Hawk in there, you have Scarlet in there. I have a lot of later stuff in there. I have a couple of the Lunatrix aliens in there. So some later stuff's in there, because again, when Kurt Groen came across a lot of his old files, I was able to fulfill some of that. So a little bit of a mixture. I mean, you have, I think a Ninja Force is somewhere in there. Eco War, I've already done all the Eco Warriors, I think, of what I have. Maybe. No, I actually have. I have Deep Six in this one. That's right. DEF I feature, so the Headman and is it Bulletproof, I believe, is in this one, and number 10 that is. So it's not as theme like. I don't know if the remainder ones will be like that essentially, but when I could do that, I would do it. Like with the Dreadnoks a little bit. It was Zartan. I did all the Dreadnoks together, and then Serpentor I tried to do, and then the Crimson, just have some fun with it, and create a little bit of a theme. But yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think now. It doesn't really have a particular theme to it. Number 10, that is. So
okay, well, that's fine. I was just curious.
No, it's a great question. It's a good observation.
I'm wondering about some of the names. Since you spoke to Larry, you spoke to Kurt, and you spoke to Ed Morrow and Kurt and Ron Ritt and stuff. Some of these names that they gave these guys, like Headman, where the heck did they come up with Headman? And did they use a little bit of thought before they said, "Here, let's put this on a children's toy"? Ice Cream Soldier, Skid Mark.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that's going to be a Larry Hama stuff. As far as names for the ones that he did. I don't know. I'm trying to remember if he did Ice Cream Soldier or Headman.
He told me
skid
he did
market.
like 99%. I
Yeah,
interviewed
he
him
did.
about
He did.
he did a lot.
He did. Yeah, he did a lot. I mean, there's a few I think that were done internally, but he joked about how sometimes they would do that and then they'd essentially hire him back. So, I think he did the majority of them. And again, Kirk would do edits, like Cover Girl. He made some changes on her, due to his daughter's name. So he added it, he added his daughter's name to it and stuff like that. So, which I share out. That Cover Girl's in volume 9, I believe. So
I thought Cover Girl was already in there.
Nope. Now she will be. But yeah, you're taking me. Lady J's been featured and all that, but not Cover Girl. So, but yeah, so the names and stuff like that, a lot of that's from Larry, and again, because I've actually considered, like I think I mentioned this past week, even doing like a live session on Facebook or something for Q&A. So yeah, I guess I can have some of that stuff, ready to go, and so I could share some of that. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see some of the alternate names. But again, maybe a name that wasn't used here was used later on down the line. So there's definitely some interesting names. I'm trying to think of like, who was it? Like even Serpentor, if I could find him real quick.
Well, yeah, Buzz Dixon said Serpentor's name was this weird name, and he told me, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was ridiculous. And he laughed, and I laughed when he told it to me, and I was like, you're right. I'm glad they didn't use that.
Yeah, I mean, so some of the ones Larry had was King Cobra, Cobra Rex, Zor, and I think Rama Set was another one. So I just think he threw out names and whatever, to see what stuck. And some names changed drastically, some didn't. Some were just modified slightly. So, but it's good, it's fun, and I try to point that out too. So, not only differences from what Larry had written to what we eventually got, and I try to put those in like little blurbs all throughout the page, but also on the top, alternate names and even vehicle names. Sometimes if I knew, like, sometimes I don't, if it's on the page, I don't necessarily maybe point it out. But I know for Kickstarters, for those backers, the Terradrome had a different name, so I shared out a memo that kind of shared that name and some of the other vehicles. So again, I sent that out to update people and just give those who've backed the project already a little bit of extra insight. Kind of as a thank you for pledging already.
Are there any stretch goals or any of that type of stuff? You usually don't get that far where you would do that because they go quick.
Yeah, I mean, I have an idea. It's still in the works. I'm still waiting to hear back from Hasbro on something. There's a couple ideas I pitched as far as stretch goals. Some were declined, some they're looking into. So for 11 and 12, I think I'll be more in tune to doing something. So what I'm working on right now, I hope if they approve it, it'll be a quick approval process. For 9 and 10, 11 and 12, there's something Night Force related, which I think will be fun. So that may be something related to stretch goal with that. So once I get on those volumes, I'll share out more of that. So depending on the success of this, I mean, there is the possibility that I release 11 and 12 together. Who knows? But we'll see. Again, it all comes down to the success of this being double release, or do I just put another one out in the fall or in the spring and then another one in the summer, and then if I get to 13 or 12 and a half or whatever we want to call it, that will be next fall, and then I'll wrap up the series. So I mean, yeah. So that's where I'm at within the full series.
It can't, if you release both of them next year separately, it can't be as difficult as it has been to try to navigate the amount of Kickstarter, G.I. Joe Kickstarter related projects this year from November of last year till now. Even with yours, it has been nonstop. If you include HasLabs, nonstop G.I. Joe Kickstarter or crowdfunding projects. I'm hoping that next year doesn't have that many projects because I don't think my wallet can take it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a challenge. And that's another challenge this year too. Is there is a lot more stuff out there that people have to decide where their money goes, right? I mean, it's one thing to have product in the stores. For a while there, we didn't have anything, so the books were, and I've always accepted it. I've always known that when people have money, sometimes they may decide on a toy versus a book. I get it, but I'd encourage people to look into the series, invest in the series because it really is a true look into the history of the books. Again, not to say don't pledge on the other ones. If you can afford it, do it, of course. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what comes next year. I mean, I know of a couple of projects and stuff, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, there's just been a lot, like you said, this year, and a lot of money's wrapped up, maybe in other things. But again, certain projects take a long time just because of their production process. Like I get when you're creating a toy, it's a little bit different than a book. Yeah. So that's one thing I try to take pride in is, again, that quickness to get it out. So this isn't, if you're looking for a Kickstarter where you don't want to wait a year and a half, and it's not to knock anybody because I get the process of it, trust me. But if you want some, if you want that pleasure of getting it in the hands right now, that's where my books can come into play and give you something to look at in the meantime while you're waiting for other stuff. So.
And real quick before we go, I have to mention this because I always ask you about it, but I haven't really got a solid, definitive answer as to when my next beautiful box.
So Slipcase was built for number 8. So it was done for number 8, but I was still up in the air on where I was going to end the series. So if I was only because I didn't know if I'd have enough to get to 12. So I was like, well, if I'm going to end at 10, then I'd rather do something a little bit different. Because why do a 4, than a 2? So if I can get to 12, there's a couple different things, and I can put it out there to the community. I can either do, because I'll probably do another one of those with the G.I. Joe logo on it. I've already shown Hasbro the second slipcase and the characters and all that, so they're on board with that and me doing it. So it's either I do a 4, 4, and 4 if I end at 12, or do I do a big one that holds all 12? So that's another possibility as well. I had to look at just cost of everything because when I did that one, I had to custom order boxes and stuff like that, which I didn't expect because originally I thought I could ship them. I guess my initial process was, I could ship them, built. Well, you gotta lay them flat. Well, when you lay them flat, it changes the size of everything. So, I still have some of those in hand. So if anybody ever wants one just for temporary, let me know. But yeah, so there are plans to do a slipcase. What it will look like and entail, that is up in the air because I don't know if I'm going to just stick to the same style and thickness and do like I said, 3 sets of where you can put 4 books, or just do one giant one. So I haven't decided that yet.
I think you should do 2 more volumes because people are all about organizational type thing. So they're going to have one extra slipcase. What are they going to do with it? I'm just going to let it hang around. Maybe make a poster of it.
You could flatten it, put it away. Who knows? I don't know. Trust me, I got a whole box of them still left. I don't know what to do with them. So, it's a good point. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, but it is something I've considered, and that's probably how I'll try to wrap it up the series as well as have something what it's going to look like and all that. It's too early to tell. I haven't even thought about it. So that could be something maybe I'll have to look into a stretch goal of some sort, and maybe you get it after the fact, shortly after, but we'll see.
You could do what they did with the HasLab and have them vote on the different options that you have because you don't want to make the decision. So you let the backers make the decision and then they pick what it is. And then whatever happens, happens. And we can't do nothing about it because we backed it and we voted for it.
Yeah. So hopefully have more when I get to number 12 or whatever it is. Again, it's all about whether I go 12, 13 because 12 is a nice even number and I can do it nice. If it's 13, then it changes everything. So it really comes down to what happens there.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
that's kind of where I'm at. But yes,
All
the idea is to do another one or two. So
Cool. Well, Dan, I think you're doing a fantastic job as always. These books, I salivate every time I get one. I tear through it and I read it 3 or 4 times because I'm afraid I'm going to miss stuff. I love them. They're beautiful. And I want to tell you fans out there, as much as I can, get these, support the Kickstarter, go back and buy the back issues. You'll not regret it. If you're a longtime G.I. Joe collector and fan, you'll never lose with creating G.I. Joe. It's beautiful. Thank you, Dan. I always appreciate you taking the time to speak with me, and it's been a pleasure always. And I hope I didn't throw you too many curveballs this time.
No, you're good. You're good. Thank you, though. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate your support and as well as everybody else's. And it's been fun. So as long as it continues to be fun, that's what makes it worth it. So
that's the key. All right, we'll see you next time.
All right, thanks, man.